What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ben Thomas Show. Thanks for coming back today, guys. I'm still battling this bad cold, but I have to give you guys my thoughts on the Hot Toys Spider-Man 2 Venom that's been announced last night. Because let's be honest, we're victims of selection right now. We've got so many Venoms that are available to us. How do you even choose? Is it based on the character model? Is it based on the price? Is it based on the size or how it fits in the collection? There's a lot of questions. And honestly, today we're going to look mostly at the two Hot Toys versions. The Hot Toys Tom Hardy Venom and the Spider-Man 2 Venom that came out last night. But the question remains, is it going to be this? Or is it going to be that? Or is it both? Stick around, find out. If you guys like the video, hit the like button, smash the subscribe if you're new to the Ben Thomas Show, and let's get into it.
Oh, pardon me, but it's, Ben
Thomas.
Showtime. Here we go.
Okay, everybody, so welcome back. Again, apologies if I sound a little stuffed up. I am on day 5, I believe, of COVID. It's almost through my system, but I definitely don't quite sound like myself, so bear with me today on this or that video. We're going to talk a little bit about the Hot Toys Venom here that got announced last night from the Spider-Man 2 game that's coming out literally tonight. It's October 19th here. For me, it's going to be 10 p.m. in Canada that I get a chance to actually play it. It's already queued up. I can't wait. I platinumed the first game, I platinumed the Miles Morales game, I plan to platinum this one, and of course keep in mind any speculation that I have with regards to this figure may or may not be totally accurate, because none of us have really got a chance to play the game, so we will find out some of the character details for sure, and of course the size comparisons in the game. Why is this Venom so large? We don't necessarily know yet, but the size is something that's lighting the figure community a little bit on fire right now, because this is one of the biggest figures I've ever actually seen. In fact, for size comparison, it's only about a ½ inch shorter than the Hulkbuster, which is insane for a Hot Toys figure, especially in 1/6 scale. Now, the interesting thing to talk about first is, again, with regards to the video game, because in some of the solicitations of the video game itself, we saw this statue actually at one point, which is a 19-inch limited edition statue for the game release. And initially when we saw this, we were kind of asking ourselves, is this scale right? Because if we think about our 6-scale collections, that Spider-Man and Miles over top of this statue of Venom are really tiny. That must mean this Venom is absolutely insanely large. So then a lot of us were like, well, maybe it's just kind of an artistic representation, maybe it's not quite accurate. We'll find out when we get the 6-scale figure release. Then we saw some pictures of the video game last week, and I gotta say, like, this Venom in this photo of the game is as big as at least the second story of that building next to it, which in terms of relation must be a minimum of about 20 feet tall. So he's hulking. He's like a small kaiju, which is crazy. Now, we don't know why he's so hulking. Maybe he goes through various levels of sizes throughout the game. Maybe this is how he starts. We're not too sure. But we are pretty confident, at least from the end of Spider-Man 1, is that this is likely not the Eddie Brock Venom that we're all used to. This is potentially, and what it was kind of teased to be, as the Harry Osborn version of Venom, which is interesting because, of course, Harry Osborn, we're so used to being a Green Goblin or a Hobgoblin. We're not necessarily used to him being a Venom character. At least I'm not necessarily from the comics. So that's an interesting take, but I think that that could be a really cool take. We do see that Harry at the end of Game 1 looks like he might get infected by the Venom symbiote, which is a little crazy. So that could be at least a factor for why this Venom looks a little different than what your mind's eye version of what an Eddie Brock Venom might look like. Now, one thing that I know Hot Toys collectors have been wanting to see is what the scale would look like. So we got this teased to us here with the solicitation photos last night. And I gotta say, this is absolutely an insanely large Hot Toy. Those are normal size 6-scale figures of Spider-Man and Miles Morales that only come up to his waist. Like, his hip joint is as big as a 6-scale figure. That is shocking. What we're looking at here is 53 centimeters. So that means that's about 21 inches of Venom. Let's put that into some perspective here. Venom being one of the biggest characters that we have available to us already in 6 scale. He's kind of comparable to Thanos, and he's comparable to a Hulk. I'm talking about the Tom Hardy Venom, of course. And he's already one of the biggest figures in my collection as it is. At 21 inches, the Tom Hardy Venom comes in at about 15 inches, or 14.9 inches. That means that this guy is a full 6 inches taller than the Tom Hardy Venom. For another comparison, it also means that for the Carnage that came out not that long ago, that Carnage, he's 4 inches bigger than Carnage. And that Carnage was one of the biggest figures I know a lot of the collectors in the community have ever experienced. So what could be the price point on this guy, right? What we were all speculating. We had no idea. It's coming in at $455 for this figure. Now, again, to compare that, the Tom Hardy Venom still shows up on Sideshow for $445. So this guy's coming in at only $10 more for the pre-order for a figure that's 6 inches bigger than the last Venom that we got. Now, I know collectors have been wanting a more of a comic representation of Venom, because the Tom Hardy Venom notoriously was panned for not having a Spider-Man symbiote symbol on his chest, the white spider logo, right? And there was a few reasons for that. He wasn't introduced to Spider-Man in that film. It wouldn't have necessarily made sense for him to have a spider logo on that character. But it felt like a miss, right? Like, if we get a Venom in our collection, we want him to look like the comic representation of Venom. And when I close my eyes, I actually think of like blacks and blues with a white logo, and it actually looks a little different than this particular spider logo that we're seeing. Now, this Venom also does come with the swap out tongues and all of that stuff, which is cool. But the benefit here, at least in terms of price point, is that there is clearly no head sculpt that's coming with this guy. There's no non-venomized head sculpt, I should say. So there's no likeness rights to necessarily have to pay for. So that could be a reason for why the cost differential between this guy and the Tom Hardy Venom is at least a little bit closer, despite the large size comparison. We do get the 2 different styles of the head sculpt though, so you still get kind of that ominous smiling sculpt, and you get the tongue out sculpt, which is very Venom-esque, obviously, right? I think this is a really cool indication of what you can expect when you put this in your actual collection. Again, that Carnage figure was one of the biggest figures I think a lot of us have had in our collections. I didn't even justify the Carnage because to me it was too big. Which, I mean, that's insane, right? Like, a figure is too big, but I also felt that it was too big, especially in comparison to the Tom Hardy Venom, which they're from the same universe. Now, the Carnage is a little bit more comic accurate than the Tom Hardy Venom was. And so I know part of the challenge for folks was that the Carnage is too big. Venom is supposed to be bigger than Carnage, or at least most iterations of it he is. So I think the new Venom actually scales better with the Carnage than the Tom Hardy Venom does with Carnage, despite the new Venom being from the video game, not from a movie realistic version. But that's okay. He still looks very movie realistic, despite him being a video game adaptation. This Venom was the most recent one that we'd got previously from Hot Toys, and this is that Tom Hardy Venom that I'm talking about. Keep in mind, here we had some likeness rights that I'm sure they had to pay for Tom Hardy, and the size of the figure was still very comparable to, as I said, a Thanos or a Hulk. So we felt that, the $445 was a relatively justified price point for this guy when he came out. When we heard about the new Hot Toys Venom last night, I had friends that were speculating $600 or $700, so to see it only be a $10 difference is crazy, but again, I think it has to do with no likeness rights. Now, the body style is actually very similar when you look at them comparatively. Apples to apples, it really does look like a very similar construction, both with the rubber overlay of the symbiote over top of the body, and where the joints are located at the shoulders and at the leg joints. To be honest, it looks like just a scaled up version of similar to what we've already got. Even the clear lacquer material that's put over top of them looks very similar to give them kind of that wet, slimy look. Now, I do have a concern about that though. In order to get the new Venom to actually fit in some of your displays, you may actually have to pose him up a little bit differently. You can't just have him standing straight up or down, because he's going to be almost 2 feet in your collection, which is insane. Most people's detofs or shelving isn't that tall. So you can definitely bend the leg. It's not just a power pose figure. He's got points of articulation, which is fantastic. The downfall, though, is that that clear lacquer material that they put over top of him to make him look wet. For the previous version of Venom, the Tom Hardy, we did see a little bit of failure there, a little bit of flaking, a little bit of chipping on that coating, and especially if you leave him in a pose for too long, it definitely risks damaging that Tom Hardy Venom. And I think this may be a victim of the same challenge, depending on how it actually comes out. Now, again, I'm speculating based on how I'm seeing the photos, but they look very similar, so just note that if you're planning on at least like posing this guy up in your collection, the new one anyways, to at least be able to fit him down and scale him into a shelf, there's a good chance you may actually see some failure on that body slowly over time if you leave him in a dynamic pose for too long. So something to consider there. Now, in terms of the character model, we talked about the Venom symbiote like symbol on the chest, or the spider symbiote symbol on the chest. I think for a cool looking display, I still lean towards this new Venom, because nobody will ever look at either of these really and not know who the character's supposed to be. But I think most people, when they close their eyes, they think about Venom with the white symbiote symbol on its chest, right? I think it looks incredibly good. And if you have a display that you can actually scale him with some of the other figures, similar to what we're seeing here with Spider-Man and Miles, pose them up together, make them look really dynamic, man, that could be a really cool looking display. But for me, I'm a little bit worried about the size, because I'm worried it's going to make my Thanos look like a child. I'm worried it's going to make my Tom Hardy Venom look ridiculously small, because it's 6 inches larger. That's insane. I don't know if it will fit the collection of 6 scale that I have. In fact, I may actually feel like it's almost like a quarter scale in comparison to a 6 scale, and it's not supposed to be. I've found that video game figure lines overall are scaled a little bit different as well to my movie realistic versions, and I'm a little bit worried that this is going to be the same way with Venom. In fact, because I wouldn't be able to fit him in my lit display, I'd actually have to stick this guy standing up in a corner somewhere, probably on the floor, which is a little insane. And I don't know how else I would display it otherwise. I'd have to be pretty creative. So I'd like to hear from you guys who are watching. If you're planning on getting this figure, how do you plan to display him? The question today is this or that, and the reason for that is because the price point is actually so damn close to the Tom Hardy one. It really just depends on how you want your collection to look. Maybe you're willing to have both in your collection. Maybe you want still that Tom Hardy representation. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing the Tom Hardy version get sold for undervalue, to be honest, because a lot of collectors are going to be wanting the new one and unloading the previous version, which is the nature of Hot Toys, which is kind of sad when you think about it, because the other one is not that old. What is it, less than a year, or at least within that kind of range anyways. And it's still an incredible figure. For me, I honestly think that I'm going to absolutely love the video game when I play it tonight, and it may change what I want my collection to look like over time. I've already got the Venom symbiote Spider-Man suit on order from this game, and I'm excited for that figure. And they're teasing this to be a pretty expansive line. So the other question that I'll then have is that if they're teasing that this line is going to be pretty large from the game, what other villains might we see from the game that I'd actually rather put in my 6 scale display with my Spider-Man, and potentially choose to skip on this guy, mostly because of the size. But guys, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Is it going to be this, the new Hot Toys Venom that was announced last night? Is it going to be that, the Tom Hardy Venom, that you choose to stick with? Is it going to be potentially the third-party Sam Raimi version that we saw recently that you'd actually rather have in your collection? Is it this, is it that, or is it both? Why or why not? What's your justification? Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys are playing the Spider-Man game tonight, I hope you enjoy it. I am very excited to talk more about that game over the coming weeks as people get it in hand and play with it. And I'm very excited to see more of this particular Venom that was announced last night, especially once collectors start seeing it in people's hands. I know we've seen some tease pictures out there of people carrying it around, and it looks freaking absolutely huge. So guys, let me know in the comments below. This, that, both, what are you choosing? But otherwise, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button for me. Smash the subscribe if you're new to the Ben Thomas Show. And guys, I will catch you on the next This or That video. Thanks for watching, everybody.
I'll be back.